Today I will tell you a scary horror story that happened in the king's palace. Let's start. In the year 1666, London was shaken by a series of mysterious events. The citizens were baffled by the strange happenings, but none were more troubled than King Charles II, for it seemed that the royal palace itself was haunted by an evil presence. At first, these occurrences were minor inconveniences, such as flickering lights and objects moving on their own. However, they quickly escalated into terrifying experiences that left the king and his servants traumatized. It all began with the sudden appearance of ghostly apparitions. Servants reported seeing the specter of a woman in a Victorian nightgown wandering the palace halls at night. She was always accompanied by the sound of dragging chains, which seemed to emanate from her very being. As the weeks went on, these sightings became more frequent and the apparition even began interacting with the living. Doors would open and close on their own, shaking the very foundations of the building. And then there were the voices, disembodied whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. They spoke of tragedy and despair, of lives cut short and secrets buried deep within the palace walls. As the paranormal activity intensified, the servants became terrified and many began to quit their jobs, fearing that they might be next to fall victim to the supernatural forces at work. King Charles II, desperate to rid his home of the evil presence, turned to the clergy for help. He summoned the most renowned exorcists of the time, but even they were unable to banish the ghost or silence its mournful cries. The king's counselors urged him to abandon the palace, but he refused, determined to stand his ground against the haunting. Yet as the months passed, the situation grew increasingly dire. The king's health began to suffer and his sanity was hanging in the balance. His counselors, realizing that he had become a mere shadow of his former self, devised a risky plan. They invited a renowned scientist and skeptic, Sir Isaac Newton, to investigate the hauntings and determine whether there was a rational explanation for them. Newton, intrigued by the challenge, accepted the invitation and arrived at the palace with a retinue of assistants and equipment. He began by examining the physical structure of the building, checking for drafts, loose floorboards, or any other potential sources of noise, but he found nothing. He then turned his attention to the apparition itself, observing its movements and listening to its whispers. With each passing day, he grew more convinced that there was a natural explanation for the haunting, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Meanwhile, the king's condition continued to deteriorate, and his courtiers grew increasingly desperate. They begged Newton to find a solution, but he remained elusive, consumed by his investigation. Then one night, as Newton was examining the apparition, he noticed something strange. The ghost seemed to be reacting to the motion of a nearby pendulum. Intrigued, he began experimenting with the pendulum, swinging it in different directions and observing the ghost's response. He discovered that the apparition was particularly sensitive to a certain frequency of vibration and would become agitated and then disappear when the pendulum reached it. Realizing that he was on the brink of a breakthrough, Newton worked tirelessly to harness the power of the pendulum, fine-tuning its movement until it emitted the exact frequency that could banish the ghost. The climax of this harrowing tale occurred in the heart of the palace. The king, weakened and tormented by the haunting, had retreated to his chambers, believing that he might find some solace there. However, as the ghost approached, dragging its chains and whispering its mournful lament, Newton stepped forward with his pendulum. He swung it with all his might, creating a powerful vibration that shook the very foundations of the room. The ghost, sensing the disturbance, turned and stared directly at Newton. A battle of wills ensued, with the ghost trying to resist the vibrations and Newton determined to banish it once and for all. Suddenly, the ghost let out a blood-curdling scream and vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. The king emerged from his chambers, weak but triumphant, and embraced Newton, thanking him for freeing him and his court from the haunting. And so, the evil presence that had terrorized the palace for so long was finally gone. But the story doesn't end there, for in the years since Newton's discovery, similar phenomena have been observed around the world. Scientists and researchers have sought to understand the nature of these apparitions and the strange forces that govern them. Some believe that they are the result of electromagnetic fields or other physical phenomena, while others believe that they may be the souls of the restless dead. Whatever their true nature, these ghostly encounters serve as a reminder of the mysteries that still remain unexplained in our world. The pendulum, once a simple tool used by alchemists and magicians, has become a symbol of humanity's fascination with the paranormal. And the story of Newton and the ghost of the king's palace continues to captivate and terrify us to this day. As the ghost approached, dragging its chains and whispering its mournful lament, Newton stepped forward with his pendulum. He swung it with all his might, creating a powerful vibration that shook the very foundations of the room. The ghost, sensing the disturbance, turned and stared directly at Newton. A battle of wills ensued, with the ghost trying to resist the vibrations and Newton determined to banish it once and for all. Suddenly, the ghost let out a blood-curdling scream and vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. The king emerged from his chambers, weak but triumphant, and embraced Newton, thanking him for freeing him and his court from the haunting. and so the evil presence that had terrorized the palace for so long was finally gone. But the story doesn't end there, for in the years since Newton's discovery, similar phenomena have been observed around the world. Scientists and researchers have sought to understand the nature of these apparitions and the strange forces that govern them. Some believe that they are the result of electromagnetic fields or other physical phenomena, while others believe that they may be the souls of the restless dead. Whatever their true nature, these ghostly encounters serve as a reminder of the mysteries that still remain unexplained in our world. The pendulum, once a simple tool used by alchemists and magicians, has become a symbol of humanity's fascination with the paranormal. And the story of Newton and the ghost of the king's palace continues to captivate and terrify us to this day. The castle stood tall and proud, a testament to the power and glory of the monarchy. But within its imposing walls, a darkness stirred, for deep in the dungeons a sinister presence lurked, preying on the fears of those who dared to enter. Rumors began to spread among the commoners, tales of a shadowy figure that stalked the castle grounds, vanishing into the darkness before anyone could catch a glimpse of it. Some whispered that it was the ghost of a former king, murdered in his own castle and now seeking revenge. Others claimed that it was a demon drawn to the castle's atmosphere of fear and despair. One fateful night, the rumors became reality when a young guard stumbled upon the creature lurking in the shadows. He let out a scream that echoed through the castle halls as he watched the specter approach, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. His comrades rushed to his aid, but when they entered the room they found him cowering in a corner, babbling incoherently about a monster that lived in the shadows. They dismissed his story as the ravings of a madman, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was lurking in the castle. Then one by one, the guards began to disappear. At first it was just a trickle, a missing guard here, a vanished sentry there, but soon they were vanishing in broad daylight, leaving behind only their terrified screams and the faint scent of sulfur. Fear gripped the castle as the people realized that they were not dealing with a ghost or a figment of the gods' imaginations. This was something more, something evil that thrived on their fear and would stop at nothing to claim them as its own. As the body count rose, the castle's inhabitants grew desperate. They turned to prayer, begging God for protection from the unseen menace that stalked their every move. But their pleas went unanswered, for this was a darkness that defied the light, a horror that reveled in their despair. One young woman, however, refused to succumb to fear. Her name was Alara, and she was the daughter of the castle's master builder. From the time she was a little girl, she had heard the stories of the castle's haunting and had dismissed them as superstitious nonsense. Now, as the darkness closed in around her, she knew that there was only one way to defeat it. She would face it head-on and banish it from the castle forever. With the support of a few brave souls, Alara began to explore the castle's darkest corners, searching for the source of the evil. They ventured into the dank, cobweb-filled dungeons where the air was thick with the stench of decay and the whispers of the damned. There they discovered a hidden chamber, sealed with a heavy iron door and bound with chains and shackles. It was clear that whatever was imprisoned in that room was powerful and dangerous, and Alara knew that she had found the source of the castle's evil. But as she reached out to open the door, the darkness that had been stalking her and her companions struck. Tendrils of black energy erupted from the cracks in the wall, coiling around Alara's legs and dragging her toward the abyss. She screamed for help, but her voice was lost in the cavernous hall. Her companions fought valiantly to free her, but they too were soon ensnared by the darkness and dragged into the waiting abyss. Now trapped in the dungeon's heart, Alara knew that she was in grave danger. If the darkness consumed her, it would use her fear to grow stronger, plunging the castle and perhaps the entire kingdom into eternal darkness. But instead of succumbing to terror, Alara remembered the stories of old, tales of bravery and courage in the face of unimaginable horrors. Taking a deep breath, she banished fear from her heart and focused on the task at hand. She reached out and grasped the iron bars of the hidden chamber, willing them to break under her touch. To her surprise, they did. With newfound strength, she flung the door open and stepped inside, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Within the chamber, she found a swirling vortex of darkness, a portal to another realm where unspeakable horrors lay dormant. From its depths, tendrils of black energy writhed and twisted, reaching out like grasping claws to pull her into the abyss. At the heart of the vortex, she saw a figure stirring, a monstrous creature with eyes like burning coals and limbs that twisted at unnatural angles. It was the source of the castle's evil, a demon lord imprisoned for centuries, and now stirring from its slumber. Fear threatened to overwhelm Alara, but she pushed it down and drew her sword. It was time to face her destiny and save her kingdom from eternal darkness. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment below. See you next time.